Hey folks, this is Matt once again, and yes, this is a review of the remake Maniac from 2012. Now, when I first heard about this project, I'm like, why are you making it? And to be honest, even watching this film, I still wonder why you had to make this remake. It wasn't needed. Can't say it really wasn't wanted either. It's hard to say that I enjoy. It's not like I had fun with the 1980 Maniac, but I do like the film. I respect what it tried to do. I ultimately say it's not a film to watch with a date, but I still like the film, and I'd probably say I still liked it better than this one because it had that atmosphere that was very sleazy, very, uh, I guess you could say scary. It was a sleazy atmosphere that was uncomfortable. It kind of made you want to wash up after watching the film. And this film doesn't capture that, but for those wondering, it was directed by Franck Khalfoun, who, if I got his name right, directed P2. It's also produced by Alexandre Aja. And he also worked on the screenplay, Alexandre Aja, which is another remake he's involved with. It stars Elijah Wood as Frank Zito. And I gotta say, though, compared to other remakes, I thought this was decent. I actually can say, overall, I liked the film. Most of the film is shot in POV, not all of it, which, I've heard, oh, we shot the entire film, the entire film's POV. I'm like, the entire film's not POV. Most of it's POV, and when I mean POV, I don't mean like video camera, I mean actual from his eyes. It is from his eyes. It's not a video camera movie. It's not a paranormal activity film. It's from his eyes. Which I thought was an interesting idea, which I think worked for the film, made it a little bit different from the original, made a little bit of its own film. But at times, like for example, if I'm looking at this computer and you're seeing from my point of view, then in one shot, say my eyesight here, then my eyesight's here, and you show, for example, say, this is a better example, say this is the movie, and this right here is the eyes of a killer. So, say he's watching me like this, and then maybe it'll cut, and all of a sudden, it's like this. Then it'll cut back, and all of a sudden like this. And it's like, okay, our eyes don't have a focus button. Also, once in a while, it shifts into third person, so we see like Elijah Wood doing something. Once in a while, it does that. So it's not entirely POV like they want to tell you, but a lot of it is POV. And I thought the gore was pretty good. There's usage of CGI, but I thought here was handled well, and you actually do get some pretty good practical effects as well. The story is pretty much the same. It is. Elijah Wood is Frank. He has a mother fixation like the original film. He kills women. He scalps them. He puts their scalps on mannequin heads. He's got a lot of mannequins. He actually has a mannequin store. Meets a girl, falls in love. Something happens. Goes after her. You even have the ending where they come back alive and tear them apart. So you do have pretty similar stuff to it. It's not like it's entirely different. But I thought they did some stuff like the POV. Elijah Wood, I would say, surprised me. I still prefer Joe Spinell. But I thought Elijah Wood, he surprised me a bit. I thought he did a pretty decent job. I think they tried to do a little bit more of a sympathetic route. I say a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. But I actually thought he did a pretty decent job. The music had a little bit of sort of a synthesizer, if I say it right, synthesizer music by Raphael Hamburger. Sorry. Especially the opening. I like the music when after he's watching a girl and he's driving. I like the bit of music there. He kills a girl with a knife under the chin. But then, like in the same shot, scalps and the scalp falls off. Like scalps are. There's a good mixture of effects. I mean, obviously the CGI used. But there's some practical. I thought it was a good mixture. And some stuff I like. I like the fact that because we're in his point of view, sometimes we see if he daydreams. So we see like when he's a boy and his mother with a hooker and was with a guy. They don't go too deep with that, but they go enough. He has hallucinations, so sometimes he thinks that he thinks that the mannequins he's talking to are real. Sometimes, like for example, he's in the bathroom, he looks down and his hand's a mannequin hand and he snaps out of it. Or he's looking at himself and like the bottom half of his body or something is a mannequin body. I thought it was kind of nice dealing with like he has hallucinations. And they throw in some stuff, like for example, he meets this girl from this dating site and this girl has piercings or tattoos and stuff. And pretty much she goes, "Oh, you're not what I expected." He's like, "Oh, really? What do you expect?" And her description is pretty much Joe Spinell. He's like, "I thought you were going to be fat and greasy and black hair." Pretty much describing Joe Spinell. I guess that's one of the things I thought this film did a bit better, especially into the love story portion. Is that was a problem with the original. You don't buy Joe Spinell and this girl like having a romance. You just don't buy it. But here you buy a little bit more because this is Elijah Wood. This is Elijah Wood, which is I think part of the reason why they cast him is you buy that love story bit more. It makes a little bit more sense. But here pretty much. This one is much more of a nervous one. I would say Joe Spinell, he was much more of a violent. I mean, this one's still violent, but much more of a violent. While this Frank is a little bit more of a nervous one, a little more of a shy one. She brings him back to her place, and she's like, "Oh, don't be a pussy." About ready to give him a blowjob, but then he snaps and chokes her. He has migraines, so he takes pills to sort of get under control. You do have a scene with the subway, but again, the original film I thought was much more of a creepier film. It was much more of an intense film. To be honest, this has gore, but the original film has a much more intensity to it. I think because to me, Joe Spinell is a scarier guy than Elijah Wood. I think Elijah Wood did a decent job, but Joe Spinell is a scarier guy. And the atmosphere of New York was scarier, and the kills. Here the kills like the scalping and stuff. It's bloody, but I don't know, the kills in the original is much more of a you feel bad more. For example, in the subway when he stabs her slowly and she screams, or the shotgun blast. You don't get a shotgun in this film, but the shotgun blast against Tom Savini's head in the original is like, oh shit, just, ugh. But here it's a lot of scalping. And like the subway, like the way he does that, he like cuts her Achilles tendon, and then pretty much stabs her, and that's when it's not her POV, and he basically stabs her a bunch of times. But again, the original was much more intense. It was just like one stab, but it was like a slow, and I think because it was slow, and then you saw that Joe Spinell was smiling, enjoying it. I think that's the other thing too. Joe Spinell, it seems like at times when he did it, he was enjoying it. But here, he's like, oh no, So we're doing more of a, I don't want to say Norman Bates, Anthony Perkins thing, but it reminded me a bit more of that than, Joe Spinell. Which I think, to me, the Joe Spinell, that's scarier. But then there's at times he hallucinates, finds out meets this girl who's taking pictures in front of his place and says, oh, I want to take pictures of your mannequins. I got this art show. Can you use it? Sure. Finds out that she has a boyfriend. The boyfriend talks shit. This older lady that's at the art show says that, oh, he's weird. Follows her home, ties her up, hog ties her, addresses her as like if she was his mom. pretty much scalps her while she's alive, and this is another shot that's not completely POV. And long story short, he talking to the girl that he's fallen in love with, lets out, sort of slips some stuff out, chases after her. There's this guy who tries to help, puts a meat cleaver into his mouth. Guy tries to come back, he grabs him, slams him through the door. Knocks her out, but then she wakes up in the van, stabs him with a piece of a mannequin hand. He follows her. She gets in a car from some person coming by. They do a stupid thing where she's like, "Oh, run him over, run him over." So they run. They hit Elijah Wood, but they're stupid because they hit something, and the girl flies out. And so, of course, he comes up and says, "Oh, why did you do that? Why did you do that?" You, of course, get the idea. He scalps her. And to be honest, I'd say the original film is much a gorier film. It's much more intense film. This has some gore, but it's not like the goriest thing ever. But you got some decent scalping and stuff, but nothing that, if you've seen the first one, you've seen it. Puts her hair on a mannequin and puts his wedding dress, and then that's when, you know, he's dying. The stuff comes alive. Like the mannequins come alive and it's his victims and they tear him apart. And I like this effect where they tear his face off, and when I thought the way they did was pretty good. They tear his face off and under it it's a mannequin head. And it's all in one shot. I thought that was handled well. And then the SWAT team comes in and he is dead. So it's not like... Two things I thought I did better than the original. The love story bit, because you buy more here. Why this girl would fall for Elijah Wood. Or kind of sort of doesn't really fall for Elijah Wood, but kind of sort of like talks to him. You don't really buy that in Joe Spinell one. Also, there's no sequel bait ending. Like they come in and he is dead. No like Maniac. So there's none of that. And like I said, there's a little bit of differences. So I liked the film because the POV made it a little bit of a different experience. I like that Elijah Wood did a decent job. That the score was pretty decent. I thought you have some good practical effects. I thought the acting wasn't bad at all. And overall, it was a decent film. I liked the film. It was a decent film. But I still think the original is a much more intense film. It's a much more scarier film. It's a much more brutal, violent film. I still think Joe Spinell is a lot scarier than Elijah Wood. I thought Elijah Wood did sort of a different version of Joe Spinell, taking pills and having hallucinations and stuff, of being part of a mannequin and stuff. But I still feel the original film is a better film. It's a much more violent film than this one, in my opinion. And I still think the original is a better film. But overall, I liked it. I mean, of the remakes that have come out, this is one that I thought was a decent one. It was a decent flick, decent film. And I think it's worth one watch. It's worth one watch. So either way, feel free to give it a watch if you want to. Take care, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.